Let me tell you something about your life. You are exactly where someone led you. If you don't like where you are right now in your life, you're going to have to reconsider changing leadership. So leadership is powerful. There are two animals that God identified himself with. Both of them are leaders. One is the eagle, the other is the lion. I always wondered why God did this. But he created them, so he knows their qualities and their character. I love them both. I always love eagles and lions. You come in my office, you see lions and eagles all over the place. In my home, lions, eagles all over the place. You know, in a couple of days we go to Africa. I told my planners down there, I got to go see the lions again. Every time I go, I got to spend time with my cousins. And I go and spend the whole day with my wife and with the lion. We go there, we spend time. Why? They remind me of me. They remind me of leadership. As a matter of fact, Jesus says he is the Lion of Judah. Not the puppy or the dog. The Lion of Judah. Not the monkey or the raccoon. The lion. God identified himself as a lion. You better study the lion. Because he rules the universe. You know, God identified with the lion and he rules the universe. That means the lion has some qualities that he wants you to study. Here's some of the lion that's very strange. Number one, the lion is not the tallest animal in the jungle. He's not the strongest. He's not the biggest. He is not the most powerful. And he's not the most intelligent. And yet he's the leader. Tell your neighbor there's hope for you. What the lion has done is he has canceled all of your excuses for not being a leader. The color of his mane and his skin doesn't inhibit him from being a leader. His intellect, his strength. There are so many animals in the jungle more powerful than the lion. Stronger, taller, bigger, more intelligent. And yet the lion eats all of them for lunch. As a matter of fact, when the lion sees an elephant, he simply thinks lunch. Why is the lion the leader? Because of attitude. Write it down. Just attitude. Attitude comes from your belief system and it produces confidence. The lion believes that he can eat an elephant. That belief becomes the source of his confidence, and so he moves toward the elephant. The elephant is 50 times more powerful, 100 times bigger, 80 times more intelligent, 60% more powerful, and yet the lion eats him for lunch. Why? Because the lion's attitude reduces that elephant to a meal. This is why he's the leader. Leadership is 80% mentality, attitude, and 20% skill. And this is why skillful people work for those with the right attitude. Look at this lion. I took this photograph myself. There's an elephant and the lion doesn't move. You see, when you look at your problems, how do you respond to them? You got a bill that ain't being paid. You got a mortgage that ain't seem to be addressed. You have demands that you can't meet. This is an elephant. How does a leader look at these things? They see it differently. A leader looks at the elephant and he simply thinks one word. This is lunch. The thinking controls the action of the creature. That's why he's dangerous. What makes Myles Munroe dangerous is my thinking. If I tell you my story, you will know that I'm a miracle mentally. I wasn't always like this. I was changed between my ears. I got some new information. I'm going to give that to you, the same information that happened to me. Because I was able to think like the lion. Look at that. Look at that leader in action. Wait a minute. But this is a monster. He said, I don't care. A leader is fearless because of knowledge. There's something the leader knows that makes them fearless. So leadership doesn't get its power from its muscle. It gets its power from its belief. You will never be a leader until I can change the way you believe. Because your belief system produces your philosophy. So leaders don't see through their eyes, they see through their belief. Huh? Your eyes say that's an elephant. Your belief says that's lunch. So if you see through your belief, instead of running away from him, you run toward him. So leaders respond based on their belief system. So to a leader, life is simply what you believe it is. How do you get to think like that? I'm going to show you right now. This is more important than keeping a job. As a matter of fact, your job is not your work. Your job is what they pay you to do. Your work is what you were born to do. You will never become successful from your job. And your job, you know, ain't permanent. So you can't trust that. You need to find your work. Your job is your skill. Your work is your gift. You can learn a skill, but you're born with your gift, and they can't take that from you. If they fire you, your gift goes with you. That's why I am unemployable. Why? I've been deployed. And I came here for you to deploy yourself. If you deploy yourself, there'll never be a crisis anymore in your life. No more economic crisis to those who deploy themselves. How do you think? And how do you get to think the way you think? And what made you think what you think right now? Where'd you get this attitude from that you have? The history that created you is still with you. And even though you wear different clothes, drive a different car, it's the same person. Because somehow our history is so heavy. It's tough to cut loose. We still apologize for being successful. We feel ashamed to be in charge. It's amazing. See, when you still carry your history, you are afraid of success. Because you might lose your friends who ain't going nowhere. Very subtle problems. Your attitude is so powerful. It creates your atmosphere. It also is a source of your natural lifestyle. If you're going to change your life, you got to change your attitude. Now here's the bottom line. Write this down. Your belief system is the source of your attitude. I know you came and you're thinking, Dr. Munroe, tell us 10 principles of leadership. No, that's not what you need first. You need to change the way you think first. I was invited to speak at Harvard University a few months ago, and the room was filled with all of these technocrats and these professors and all these, Ivy League people. And they invited me to speak on leadership. Do you know what I came in there and talked about? I talked about thinking. When I was finished, first standing ovation ever at Harvard University, they says. They had never heard anybody get into their heads before. I exposed those who were racist. I showed them that your thinking is your philosophy that destroys the way you treat people in your department. And until your thinking change, you are contaminated leadership. They had never heard such a level of teaching on leadership. Why? Because unless your mind changes, you will never become a leader. Ladies and gentlemen, let me put it this way. Attitude determines your limitation, which means that your belief system determines how far you go. You can never lead beyond your attitude and your belief system. And that's why your life is what you think it should be and exactly what it is. Attitude is the manifestation of your personal philosophy. And that's why this first session is dealing with discovering your personal leadership first. Then we could talk about people. Write this down. Philosophy is a product of your ideas. And this is why I started this session out with a question. Do you believe that everyone is a leader? You had problems with that. And I understand, because the culture doesn't allow it. Could you imagine going to work tomorrow telling your boss, I am a leader too? You just have problems with that. People tell me, they have a PhD in physics, and I laugh at them. I say, really? So what does that mean? That means nothing to me. That doesn't make you better than me. Your education doesn't change your human value. We are still equal as humans. And I do know some things you don't know. So we got to be careful. Our philosophy, our ideas is the source of our philosophy. And I like what the great king said, King Solomon. As a man thinks where? In his heart, so is he. Don't ever quote that verse again without putting the word heart in it. Most of you quote that and leave the word heart out. And the most important part of the verse is the word heart. As a man thinketh, so is he. That is not what he said. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Why? Here's why. Because the heart is the Hebrew word that has to do with the center of reasoning. It's the place where you have meetings with yourself. Where you talk to yourself. That's your heart. That's the meeting place where you are reasoning with yourself. That's where you sit down and say, well, let's see now. Can I do this? Can I not do it? Can I really do this? That's where you're having meetings with yourself. Because that's where your belief system is hidden. In other words, your heart is also, Paul calls it the hidden man. The psychologists would call it your subconscious mind. I call it your hard drive. You know, this iPad got a hard drive on it. Don't trust what's on the desktop. The display? Don't trust that. The stuff on the inside, that's the real thing. Now, what is your heart? Your heart is the place where you keep all the ideas you collected all your life, the ones you believe, you keep it. So when you hear the word heart in the Bible, don't point at your chest. Point at your head. As a man thinks in his subconscious mind, what have you downloaded as your software on your hard drive that you believe? Every time someone presses a certain button in your life, whatever is there comes up. For example, there's some of you black people in this room. When a white man comes into your department, you become very nervous. And when a black man comes, you act like you don't care. In other words, there's something in your heart, your hard drive still got some problems. There's some viruses. You're sick. It's there on your hard drive. 40 years of struggle and you're still there. You ain't free yet. You just delivered.
That's right. Come on, that's good.
Deliverance is when you leave Egypt and enter the wilderness.
That's right.
Freedom is when Egypt leaves your mind. So stop telling people you're free. You are still in the wilderness. And notice what God did in the wilderness, eh? He kept them going around in circles. 40 years going around in circles. You know, my wife and I had an experience, I'll never forget this. We went from Israel to Egypt. And, you know, we were going to visit Egypt for the first time. And this years ago we went there. We've been there a couple of times. And, man, the aircraft took off. And I'm getting excited. I'm going to see Egypt. I'm going to see Pharaoh, you know, remains of the, you know, all this stuff. Get excited. And before I could get excited, they said, we're about to land. Fasten your seatbelts. I said, wait a minute. We just took off. And the flight attendant says, yes, we're landing. I said, well, we just left. She said, yes, but we're landing. Ah. I said, what are you talking about? It's only been 20 minutes. She said, yes, we are in Egypt. 20 minutes. We are in Egypt. I said, what are we doing in Egypt already? She says, Cairo is only 20 minutes away. No, you didn't hear what I just said. Okay, let me explain it to you. It took Moses them 40 years to go from Egypt to Israel, where I was. 20 minutes. So when we got to Egypt, right, they picked us up, took us to our hotel, checked us in, and then our first tour guide, you know, came to get us, and we boarded the bus, and we going out to the pyramids. On our way out there, I became very intrigued. So I asked the driver, I said, excuse me, sir, how far is Israel from here? He said, oh, it depends on how you go, he says. I said, well, explain it to me. He said, well, from Cairo to Israel, Jerusalem, if you walk, it's about 40 days. You take a bus, it's 24 hours. Take a plane, it's 20 minutes. I told my wife, where's my Bible? I got to read my Bible again. I went back hotel room, grabbed my Bible. I said, let me just see. I think God made a mistake. It took them 40 years for a 40-day trip. And then I read in the Bible, it says, because they had not gotten Egypt out of their minds, the Lord led them the long way around until their children were born. Let me just give you the point I'm making here. God will deliver you, but will never set you free. You got to set yourself free. They walked around in that desert for 40 days. Why? 40 years. Why? Because 40 years is a generation. What was God doing? He was waiting for 40 years until he got what they were carrying in their loins. The next generation. When the kids came up, God killed them all. Killed all the parents. But God allowed none of them to go into the promised land. Why? Because they were still thinking about onions instead of milk and garlic instead of honey. They didn't change their thinking. Your mentality is more important than your location. If you don't change as a person, mentally, you will stay where you are physically. So God killed them all. Only 2 left. And those 2 were born in the desert. Caleb, Joshua. They had no memory of oppression. They believed anything was possible. Leadership begins with thinking. So my question is, what is your philosophy of leadership? Why don't you believe that you could own a company? Why the first thing you look for is a job instead of look for a business? It's subtle questions, but why? Why do you go to college and study an area that guarantees employment rather than guarantees deployment? Because your hard drive is stuck. You know, I sit with heads of states. You saw those pictures. Heads of state, kings, governments. I work with them all the time. And most of the folks who run countries are sick just like you. They don't know what to do with the country. Power doesn't make you smart. It exposes your ignorance. Let me quickly do this because I don't want you to have nightmares. Let me just give you, let me conclude this by giving you God's philosophy of leadership, okay? I'm going back to the beginning where you began. Genesis chapter 1 is really about you. Verse 26 says, then God said, let us make a species called man in our own image, according to our likeness. And he tells us why. He says, to let them have dominion over fish of the sea, birds of the air, over the cattle and the animals of the field, over all that's growing in the earth, and over everything that creeps on the ground. Now, every word in this statement is very important. And in this verse is the secret to your life. It's the secret to your greatness and your leadership. This is where I found mine right here. I found it in here. I'm just going to say this. I hate to talk about these things, but I'll just say it. In a lot of my contracts with governments, they pay me $5,000 an hour. Could you imagine? You work for 10 hours. 3 days. Okay. I used to sleep on the floor with roaches. I am from a family of 11 children. 1 mother, 1 father. I am number 6, right in the middle. We were born in a wooden house on 4 big rocks in a small, low-income, poor area called Bainstown in the Bahamas, in an island 7 miles wide. That was my life. 7 miles wide, 20 miles long. I was born middle of the island. Poorest part. The house had 2 rooms. 11 kids now, 2 bedrooms. 1 for my mother and father, 1 for my 7 sisters. We slept like sardines. So the 4 boys slept on the floor. That's where I was born. One chicken for 11 kids. The neck was delicacy. Listen, this is my life. 1 pair of shoes for the whole year. If it sprung a hole, I had to put cardboard in it. I remember sleeping with roaches running over my body. I remember waking up in the morning with blotches, blood. I was scratching the mosquitoes that were trapped under the dirty sheet on that mat on the floor. I remember looking up at the ceiling and seeing the stars through it and buckets to catch the water from the rain. Don't talk to me about poverty. And my father was a Baptist pastor. And I went to church 3 or 4 times a week, and I slept with roaches. Don't tell me about religion. So when I talk to you from this position I'm talking to, I'm telling you what worked for me. And now to be paid $5,000 an hour. How do you move from the floor with roaches to being called on by heads of states to talk to the entire governments? Something happened in my mind. And it began with this verse. Let us make man. The word man here is the word ish. I-S-H, write it down in Hebrew, ish. It's a plural word, which means that God wasn't making a person, he was making a species. All of us is called man. For example, we call all dogs, dogs. We call all cats, cats. God called all of us man. Man is the designation of the whole species. It comes in two models, male and female. But it's all man. And then he says, I want to make this particular product in my own image. Write the word image down. See, this stuff is important. This is what set me free. The word image doesn't mean to look like. The Hebrew word means characteristics. Characteristics. Let them have the same characteristics, qualities of God. No Baptist pastor told me that. My father couldn't teach me that. He didn't know it. I had to find it for myself. I have God's character. Wow. What a discovery for a little boy sleeping on the floor. I am just like my father, God. Oh, my mind was changing. You know, we had teachers from Europe because we were oppressed by the British, you know. We were bought there as slaves years ago. My great-grandfather was a slave, you know. And so the British people, man, they told us that we were half-breed monkeys. They were very clear. They said, you are not fully humans. They told us this in class. One of them said to me, you are retarded. Your brain is maldeveloped. You are not able to be educated. All you can do is music and dancing. And that's why they still believe that today right here in this city. All your people do is dance and music. Why don't you run the economy? We're not world changers, we are entertainers. I decided, no, I got God's character. I got to find this. The qualities of God is in you. Every one of you, black, white, Asian, it doesn't matter, Puerto Rican, you have God's image. This is not a message for any race of people. It's for humans. You can do anything you dream. You're just like your God, your Father. Boy, that thing hit me like a bolt of light. Wow. And then the word likeness. I had to look for it myself in the Hebrew. You know what it means? It means to function like. Let us make a creature that has our characteristics and functions like us. That means you function just like God, your Father. Which means you got to study, how does God function? Because if you don't function like God, you are malfunctioning. For example, in God, the Bible says there's no fear. So when you fear life, you are malfunctioning. So I'm afraid of nothing. I'm telling you, literally, I'm afraid of nothing. That makes me dangerous. A fearless man is a dangerous man. I'm not afraid of death. And that's the highest threat you can give me. And I'm not afraid of death. And you'll find that all true leaders have no fear of death. As a matter of fact, they have an affair with death. All true leaders. Why did God create you? Read it. To have what? Dominion. So what was the motivation for God's creation of you? Dominion. Why did God create you? Say it loud. Dominion. Well, what motivated God to create you? Dominion. What was the reason why God created you? Dominion. Yeah, not to have worship services. He never said prayer meetings. He never said to be a bishop. I don't know. Culture has done a good job with us. Here's a guy who's a bishop and can't pay his light bill. Here's an evangelist who owes everybody. Here's an apostle who can't even pay his mortgage. Something's wrong with this. We missed the point. He didn't create you to be a title. He created you to have dominion. Everybody say dominion. Dominion. This is where leadership is born. See? Because the word dominion, I checked it out, is the word radah in Hebrew. Write it down. It actually means to rule. It also means to govern. It means to master, to manage resources. It means to control things. It means to have sovereign authority. It actually means to lead. Please buy this CD and listen to it a few times. Get this in your spirit. That is why you were created. To be a ruler, a governor, a manager, a controller, an authority, and a leader. Now, here's why I changed. Here's why I changed. When I discovered this, I had to discover the second principle. I'm going to give it to you. If he designed you, created you to be a leader, a master, a governor, a ruler, a controller, then there must be the ability to do it. But notice he didn't give you rulership over people. He listed what you should lead: birds, fish, animals, plants, and creeps. This is very important. God says, let's make a leader, a governor, a manager, a ruler, not to rule people. So leadership in God's mind is not about people. It's about resources. You've been taught, he who has no one following is simply taking a walk. That's what the Chinese taught you. Jesus disagrees. He said, you are a leader whether someone is following you or not, as long as you are fulfilling the management of resources through your gift. But you see, it's the way it works. Here's the way it works. It works. First, let me give you this is the secret. Whatever a manufacturer demands, he builds into the product. Write that down. This is what changed me from the floor. Whatever a manufacturer demands from a product, he builds it into the product. Am I right? Am I right about this? Think about anything. Your car, for example, your computer, your iPad, your iPhone, whatever you have, your refrigerator, whatever it's supposed to function as, it is built with. Number two, whatever God calls for, he provides for. Number three, whatever God demands, he inputs. Number four, whatever God expects from something, he injects it into it. And number five, whatever God gave the purpose of a thing to do, he built it with the potential to do it. That changed my life. Because when I discovered the principle of creation, I discovered my ability. Yeah. So when a manufacturer makes a product, he makes it for a purpose. Purpose means to perform a specific function. He builds into the product the capacity to perform the function. And then he sells it to you. And he tells you to demand these certain things from the product. You can demand it because it's already built in. When I discovered this, my life changed. Because suddenly I realized that no one in my environment could determine what I could and could not do. That's when I canceled my European teachers. It was at that point my life changed. I was 13 years old when I discovered this. I want to show you something. Give you an illustration. If God created you to dominate, then the capacity to dominate is in you. Do you get the principle? Okay. So whatever you were born to do is built in. So here's what I want you to take a look at then. Conception does not guarantee manifestation. Now what I mean by that is a bird and a fish were created by God. The fish was created to do what? Swim. So fish do not attend swimming lessons. I know it sounds simple, but it's very important. Why? Because swim is built into the fish. Why? Because God demanded the fish to swim. So he put the ability in it. Birds were designed by God to fly. So birds don't attend flight school. Flight is built in. I like this one. Seeds. Seeds were designed by the Creator to bring forth trees. You'll never find a seed attending a tree growing convention to learn how to grow trees. Why? Where's the tree? Trapped on the inside. In other words, whenever God created something to do, he built it in. Your culture and your educational system doesn't allow you to discover that. We are educated to be employed, not to be deployed. Seeds deploy themselves and become trees. Fish deploy themselves and they swim. Birds deploy themselves and they fly. We are the only creatures God created who don't deploy ourselves. Because our culture doesn't allow it. You got to get free from the culture. And it's seminars like this that make you begin to have a meeting with yourself and discuss yourself with yourself and say to yourself, self, am I who I really am? You know, here's my conviction. This is why I believe that buried in every human being is a leader, trapped by an erroneous philosophy that you were born to follow. Let us make man to have what? Dominion. To govern, to rule, to lead, control. Which means that somewhere inside of you is a ruler, a controller, a leader, a dominator. Somewhere in there. because he would not have demanded it if he didn't inject it. Which means that your ability is determined by your responsibility. Your potential is designed by your purpose. Your potential is equal to what you were born to do. The best example I can give you is this car. Look at this car. All cars have what they call a speedometer. Am I right? Well, here's an old one, old Chevy. Now, if you look at the numbers have up to 160 miles per hour this car can travel. All of your cars have that kind of registration, sometimes 200, 180. Everybody got that, right? Okay. Now, when you bought the car, that was on the car. You bought the car with it. It was on it, 180 miles per hour. I'm getting ready to go, okay. I'm so excited. Okay, so you bought this car, you brought it home, and the manufacturer says this car can travel 180 miles per hour. How can the manufacturer put that on there? What makes him so sure that this vehicle could travel 180? That's the first question. The second question is, have you ever traveled 180 in that car? No. Let me tell you how stupid our philosophy of our countries are. We sell a car that could travel 180 and put a sign up 50 miles per hour. It's amazing. It's crazy. I don't understand it. I have no idea how they got this idea. I don't know where it comes from. But it tells you the nature of your culture. Don't try it. They give the company permission to build the capacity, but restricts your ability to use it. And you never thought about that. And that's the way they think about you. So all your life, you can make 180, but you've been traveling for 50 years at 60 miles per hour. And you think you're living. The capacity is present. Our culture says you can't go any further. And God says, press the accelerator. And your culture says, you can't go any further. You can go no faster. And God says, and your culture says, you can't do that. And God says, let's go. And your culture says, stop. That's as far as you can go. You got to make a decision tonight, see? You have God's ability. And man puts up the signs. You're a follower. And God says, you're a leader. You're an employee. And God says, you're a controller. You are a subject. And God says, you are a ruler. They keep putting up signs. One day, I was in Germany. My wife and I spent 6 months in Germany. And one day we were going from München to another city for me to speak. And we got on what they call the Autobahn. The Autobahn is a road without limit, no speed limit. Okay, once you can go as fast as you can. So my host was driving a beautiful black Mercedes. And you know me, I'm from the Western world where there are signs everywhere. Okay? You guys ain't got no Autobahns here. So I'm on the highway, man, and he said to me in German, I spoke German. He said, have you ever been on an Autobahn? I said, what is an Autobahn? He said, this is the street we're about to enter where there's no limit. We can drive as fast as we want. I said, what? He said, would you like to drive? I said, yes. For the first time in my life, I have an opportunity to open a car. I felt so excited. I said, man, I get to drive. He said, yes. So he pulled off to the gas station, switched. I got in the car. Hey. My. He said, go on, turn off. We turn off onto the highway. He said, okay, go ahead. He says, we're going to be driving for another 4 hours, so don't worry about it. And man, I begin to see that needle go up, and I become excited. And I hit 60, right? Mentally, 60. I go, oh dear. He says, go ahead. I said, really? He said, go ahead. And I went up, 80. And my whole heart begins to pump faster. And I'm thinking, I'm flying. He says, Dr. Munroe, please go ahead. I said, you mean? He said, yes, go ahead. I went up 95. He says, go ahead. Now, the car could make 250. And I'm thinking, oh, Jesus, man. He says, go ahead, you are going too slow. Cars are passing me. So I hit 100, and my whole body began to rebel. My mind began to rebel. And I realized that I was corrupted by my culture. And he said, you are going too slow. I went 120. He said, will you please? Now, by this time, I'm the only car on the road. I'm feeling that, man, 125. This is it. I'm the fastest man in the world. And I'm flying. I'm flying. All of a sudden, 10 minutes later, a car passed me. He said, I told you you're going too slow. I went to 150, and my whole body, my whole mind, everything locked up and said, you can't do this. He said, what's the matter? I said, this is 150. He says, you're still going too slow. This is the Autobahn. The average speed is 185. He said, do you still want to drive or you want to pull over? I said, I'm going to try to drive. And at 170, there was a barrier broken in my mind. I never forgot that to this day. 170. Something happened to me, and I realized there was life after 170. Wow! Man! 185, man, I'm flying. Shoo! I said, can I go more? He said, go ahead. And 190, shoo! I said, can I go? He said, go ahead. 200, man. I'm sitting there going, yeah. He said, now we're driving. My life has changed that day. No more barriers in my life. There was a point where I had to break it. That's why you're here. I'm going to take you to that point. You got to break it. There's life after your job. There's life outside your career. There's life beyond the pulpit. Don't let the pastorate become your cage. There's life beyond your employment. You gotta break it. You're a leader. I call it unreleased potential. Driving at 50 with a car of 150. See, you think you're doing well until someone passes you. I thought I was doing well. The guy passed me. I said, excuse me. Tonight, I am the German sitting in the passenger seat. That's who I am for you right now. And I'm here to tell you, go for it. Go a little faster. Break it. That's who I am. I'm the guy sitting on the passenger side saying you're going too slow. You could do better than this. You're a leader. I hope that this first night will cause you to think about your own limitations. Because that's you. The Creator is the only manufacturer I know who hides a man inside a boy. He hides a woman in a girl. He doesn't create women. He hides them. He doesn't create men. He hides them. I wonder who's trapped in you. I wonder if we'll ever meet you. I guess the graveyard will get it. Today I look at myself in the mirror and I kept thinking, that was on the floor with the mosquitoes and the roaches. I wonder who's sitting in your chair right now. You're a leader. Can you see yourself? You know why you're still alive? Because the manufacturer ain't satisfied. He's bored. He's telling you, you've not shown yourself yet. Show yourself. Let me close with these statements. Write them down, please. You were born to lead, but you must become a leader. That's the purpose for a seminar and a conference. I'm not here to make you leaders. I am here to expose you as a leader. A seed is a tree, but it must become the tree. And that's the way you are right now. You are a great woman, an awesome man, but you must become. It is my passion, my hope my anger, that no human being die until they are manifested. Let's meet you before you go. Let the world see who you really are before you leave us.